Desert Voice Media. You can visit desertvoice.media to learn more.
915 TALK.
The world is looking at El Paso.
What will we say to the world? From the KELP studio in El Paso, this is 915 Talk.
And now your host,
Episode 284 of 915 Talk. Oh, man. And a very happy Ocho de Mayo to all who celebrate. Kenny, on the board, you celebrating today?
Ocho de Mayo?
Sure.
Because that means I can go somewhere and get free tacos?
No.
No, then I'm not celebrating.
Yeah, you know we should celebrate every day.
We should.
Yeah, it's another day we have here on Earth, and it's another day that we can continue on this journey as we learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory.
That's right.
Yeah, so good afternoon, most excellent citizens of the borderland. This is 915 Talk. I'm your host, Andy Frecka. Today we are yet again broadcasting from the heart of the world's largest borderplex. We're here at the KELP studio in El Paso. And Kenny on the board.
Yes, sir.
How you doing this afternoon?
I am well. How about you?
Oh, I must once again confess my vocabulary is painfully inadequate.
I have some non-Gen
I am
Z
unable.
words.
I am unable to describe the wonder and joy that I experience each and every afternoon.
Would you like to hear?
Okay, yeah, fire away.
How about, have you used invaluable yet?
No. Invaluable?
Invaluable, this journey that
Is
we're
that
on
like
is
the
invaluable.
is that like the opposite of valuable?
No.
No. Okay.
No, invaluable means it's
extra
deemed
valuable.
extra valuable, yes.
Okay. All right. So I hope you're sitting down, Kenny, on the board, because I'm about to blow your mind. We have two very special guests.
Ooh, two.
Yeah. Do you know why they're special?
Because you can count to two?
No. It's
No. They're both unique expressions of an endlessly creative God?
Yes, they are both.
And they carpooled here?
Yes, that's true. So we have a lot to talk about. So
Okay.
we're going to be talking about Christian education.
Wow.
And
all
for
right.
that, we have an extra special guest. You know, we've been talking all week about how 915 Talk is the second best part of my day.
Mm-hmm.
And the best part of my day is when I get to go home and see my family.
Yes.
Right. And
That's right.
for our one guest today, her highlight of the day is when I get home too. She's always so happy to see me and talk about her day.
Oh.
Yeah, so
How sweet. Does she have a ring on her finger?
She does. It's my wife.
Aw.
Yeah, so she's also the head of school over at Immanuel Christian School. And then Immanuel Christian School, this is big news, Kenny, on the board.
Okay, big news.
Yeah, we have a new athletic director.
That's breaking news.
Yes, it is breaking news. Oh.
It must be breaking news.
Immanuel Christian School has a new athletic director. So he comes to us from Arizona.
Okay.
He has a background in all kinds of things, but it's interesting. He was a Major League Baseball scout.
Wow.
For the Houston Astros.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's also a baseball coach. Now he's the athletic director at Immanuel Christian School.
Wow.
So
Props to you.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about sports. We're going to be talking about education. So without further ado, let's give a very warm Borderland welcome to Mr. Paul Gale and Mrs. Rachel Frecka. Paul and Rachel, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a lot to talk about. Good to have you here. You know, it's not easy to get some guests on, you know, but especially Rachel. She's super busy, but occasionally she agrees to come in. But today we're going to be talking about Christian education. Rachel, let's start with you. Growing up, you'd hear about the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's, you know, growing up, that would be why we go to school. But there's also extracurricular activities. There's fine arts. Where does that play into education?
Well, I think, you know, for so long the emphasis was on those 3 R's. But I think as we have...
But which, by the way, only one of them starts with an R.
I know.
Okay. Right.
It's interesting. But, you know, I think in recent years we've come to appreciate more and more that it's not just about the academic development of a child, but it's about their whole development, socially, emotionally, physically, spiritually, absolutely. And academics is an important part of that. And it's, of course, it's why kids go to school. But I think that we've really come to appreciate the fact that there's so much more to the development of a child. And personally, for me, fine arts is very close to my heart because I grew up in a very musical family. I grew up playing the piano, attending, the orchestra, and being exposed to the arts. And so I always enjoyed it. But I don't think until I was an adult and was actually working with children and youth did I realize the important role that it plays in the development of a child. And so, a lot of studies have come out in recent years that show very clearly that more brain development happens through learning a musical instrument than through, other forms of school activity, especially in young children. The hand-eye coordination, the brain connections that are being formed when a child learns how to play a musical instrument. They're hearing, they're moving their body, they're processing things on a very high level. And so even for those children who maybe don't want to be a professional musician or a professional painter, exposing them to those arts at a very early age really sets them up for academic success later. And not only that, but, there's a lot of talk. My kids actually make fun of me when I talk about the 8 smarts because, they're like, hey, I'm nature smart. But the reality is that they've identified 8 ways, 8 directions in which children demonstrate, intellectual ability or other kinds of abilities. Things like logic smart, music smart, social smart. Like there's all these different ways that kids are gifted. And traditionally in education, we've tended to focus on those smarts that are more traditional, being able to sit at a desk, pay attention for long periods of time, write neatly, think logically, the skills that make for successful school. But we're finding that there's a lot more ways that God has designed children. Maybe it's rhythm smart. Maybe it's they're very good kinesthetically. They can do things with their hands. They can make things. They can build things, and those strengths aren't often developed in traditional education. But I think that as we've learned, as we've developed in the field of education, we're learning just how important those things are. And so it's very heartbreaking to me to see school budgets in the area of fine arts reduced, to see the emphasis on those things sort of put to the side, and more focused just on traditional schooling, because really at the end of the day, all of those things are going to help to develop that whole child. And you never know, a child might go into school and they don't know that they have a gift of music or that they're very gifted as an artist. And when they're exposed to those things, then they can really find the ways that God's uniquely designed them and find the ways that He has ordained for them to bring Him glory in the world, and maybe even find a great career through it.
Okay, so love all that. You're talking about fine arts, and then we'll talk to Paul here in a minute, the new athletic director. But as head of school, what's your view on sports and how it contributes to education?
Well, I think sports is unique in the sense that, fine arts can accomplish this too. My kids played in orchestras growing up. They got to be a part of a lot of group activities around arts and music. But very often music is a more individual activity, whereas sports is a very social activity. And I think that when we talk about sports and education, I think sometimes there can be this almost competition between the academic side and the athletic side. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, we need athletics and education because of what it does in building character and building those social emotional skills. There's nothing more powerful in the life of a child than having to learn to deal with failure and having to learn resilience. And I think there's a lot of talk right now. A lot of books are being written about the anxious generation and the lack of resiliency in this generation, and how trauma has affected them, and it's very sad to see a generation that is not equipped to handle hardship and is not equipped to handle failure, and really struggle when they get out into the world because they've been isolated, they've been protected, they've been sheltered, and then they get out into the world and they reality hits and they don't have the skills that they need for it. And so I think even just from our personal experience with our own sons being involved, and daughter being involved in athletics, I don't think there's any better training ground for them to learn humility, to learn what it means to be a part of a team and what it means to make sacrifices for other people, what it means to set aside their own pride for the good of the group. And so I think there's so much character building that happens in athletics. And I would say even for those kids that maybe aren't super, what we would think of as athletically talented or gifted, I think everyone, especially at an elementary age, needs to have that opportunity to experience group sports, just because of what it does for their character and social emotional development.
All right. If you're just joining us, we're with Mrs. Rachel Frecka, my wife. She's the head of school at Immanuel Christian School. She's also she's on the board of the Texas Private School Association, and we're with Paul Gale. He's the new athletic director at Immanuel. If you're listening and you have questions about private school education, Christian education, we're going to open up the phone lines, 915-779-0016, 915-779-0016. Paul, welcome to El Paso.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you've been here before?
Yes.
What brought you here?
Well, my son played for the Chihuahuas
for
a couple of years, so we'd come in and check on him. And I think that was probably about the only reason that I got here. It's not really, I've been through it a few times on my drives to different places.
Right. And your son was a catcher?
Yes.
Okay, for the Chihuahuas, and he played a little bit on the major league level as well?
Yes, a little bit. He went up with the Padres. I can't remember the year. I think Pat Murphy was the manager, and then a few years later, he was over to the Dodgers and played with the Dodgers for a few years, and now he's a coach with the Dodgers. So
very cool, very cool. So coming to El Paso back in the day to watch the Chihuahuas, what was something you looked forward to?
Well, mostly I went from...
Other than watching your son, of course.
We went from the DoubleTree to the ballpark was about the extent of El Paso. But, no, he took me out to breakfast at H&H Car Wash one time, and that was really fun. It no longer... I went by it the other day.
I've never heard of this one.
Yeah. It was a car wash where you could get breakfast, too. Oh, it was a good breakfast.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so I remember doing that. We went down to the border and, did a little shopping, that kind of stuff. And
right.
Always impressed with it. The ballpark was a beautiful ballpark. Club was ran well. We really enjoyed the play-by-play announcer. I don't know if he's still doing it, but he did a great job. We'd follow on the radio all the time. And so we were kind of El Paso fans.
It's super cool. All right, so now you're here in the role of athletic director at Immanuel. I was at the awards banquet last week. And you spoke a bit at the end about the difference between sports in elementary school, middle, and high school. Could you speak into that?
Well, I think in our elementary programs, we just want kids to get involved, to get some physical exercise, to learn to be a teammate, to have a lot of fun. When I watch the 3rd and 5th graders play flag football, they don't think they know what the score is, to be honest with you. And they're out there having fun, and it's a great attitude. And I think we want them to break everybody into what sports is and allow them to experience it and to learn some rules, learn some skills, but just to have a lot of fun and participate. I think when we move into junior high, my concern becomes a little bit more retention. 70% of athletes stop at age 13. They play up till 13, and those kids stop. And
70% stop 70%. Playing at the age of 13.
Correct. And it's a retention issue. There's a lot of reason for it, several reasons for it. One would be its affordability. There's so much club sports now involved and private lessons and things of that nature that parents can't afford to do it anymore. Other barriers, include the fear of failure,
Sure.
the too much pressure. They don't like the pressure of, some kids don't want to have that pressure of playing and having to perform in front of people. And even good athletes, I think, shy away from some sports like wrestling and baseball where they're exposed to failure with everyone watching. They can't kind of mix into the team sport and have it be a team defeat. It's individually them, golf.
It's
whatever.
Obvious.
Yeah, track, whatever it is. And we can, I think at the junior high level, I want to eliminate as many of those barriers as possible. We can't eliminate them all, of course, but what I have found in my days as a parent of kids playing sports and as a scout, for that matter, nobody becomes good at a sport at the same age. There isn't an age where you can say, okay, they're good, they're not, let's move on. Some kids, it's obviously that maybe they're not going to be great athletes, but at the same time, it's just, I've seen kids that didn't make their varsity team till their senior year that pitched in the big leagues. I mean, there's not everyone becomes good. What's that?
Late bloomers.
Yeah, late bloomers, even into college. Kids that didn't perform well in junior college and were drafted out of college. So it's we need to not put that barrier there where we're making decisions for them before they've had an opportunity to see if they can blossom and get better. And that's difficult, because you have limited gym space, you have limited coaches, and, you can't, it's hard to run a rec league and keep kids busy. But that's certainly something that I think is I want to keep retention so those kids keep playing into high school. Then if you get your numbers up and you start playing in high school, I think then you lock into the process of what athletics was about. A lot of things that Rachel mentioned of just building character and hard work and teamwork and all those things. You start working about the process. The process is more important than winning. It's like if you do the process correctly and work hard and dedicate and be a good teammate and practice hard and all those things that you have to do to succeed, even if you don't succeed, that process stays with you for all of life. And even if your team finished last place in high school, you still have those principles and those things ingrained in you of what you needed to do in order to have success and become a good athlete or become a successful athlete. So that's kind of the philosophy I go at it with and hope to establish at Immanuel Christian.
Super cool. Again, if you're just joining us, we're with Mr. Paul Gale. He's the new athletic director at Immanuel Christian School, and with my lovely wife, who's also the head of school at Immanuel Christian. She is sorry, I'm laughing because we're getting a lot of comments on YouTube. 915 Talk is our channel on YouTube. We have 2 Immanuel seniors watching with great interest right now. Their names are Benny and Jonas. Sadly, they're moving on after this year, but they said that the live stream is lit, which I think is a positive sign. So you were talking about elementary school is participation, middle school is retention, and high school is the process. Okay, so I do want to drill a little bit deeper into those subjects, but first we do need to take a break. And before we go into the break, this is your daily reminder that 915 Talk is a production of Desert Voice Media. It is listener supported. You can listen to this or any previous 915 Talk conversation by going to our website, which is just that, desertvoice.media. Truly am grateful to each and every one of you who listen, who join us in this journey as we learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and give God all the glory. Our watchers on YouTube want us to know that Rafa and Adam are there as well. We do need to go into a break. If you have questions or even comments about Christian education, maybe questions about school vouchers, Rachel would love to answer those as part of being on the Texas Private School Association. Sports, anything we're talking about, questions or comments, the number is 915-779-0016. We'll put you on the air and have a little conversation. We're going into a break. Do not touch that dial.
We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
915 Talk is listener supported and is a production of Desert Voice Media. That's right. It's people just like you who make this program possible. Together with Desert Voice, you can learn how to better serve our neighbors and pray for our community. To become a Desert Voice media partner, you can visit desertvoice.media. That's right. That's the website, desertvoice.media. Take a look and join us today in reaching our borderland for Christ.
915.
Testify.
So growing up, I actually grew up to be a Muslim. And it wasn't up until high school when I started going to church and I didn't know who Jesus Christ really was. It wasn't up until April of this past year in 2024 when I fully surrendered to Christ. I was an alcoholic. I was a man full of lust. I was just lost in the sinful nature of this world. And I didn't know how to comprehend certain things. I didn't know how to have a proper relationship. It was just tormenting me from the inside. But I'm here to tell you today that Jesus Christ changed my life for the better, serving at the capacity, knowing that I have a purpose and moving with that purpose because I know that the world is coming to an end soon. My name is Marvis Davis, and I'm here to tell you that if Jesus Christ did it for me, he could also do it for you too.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb
And by the word of their testimony.
Desertvoice.media.
You can now feed your mind, feed your soul by listening to KELP Radio on your Alexa device. Just say, "Hey Alexa, play KELP Radio."
We're back. You're listening to 915 Talk.
We are back, and you are listening to 915 Talk. I'm your host, Andy Frecka. Today we're with the head of school at Immanuel Christian School. She's also my wife, Mrs. Rachel Frecka, and the new athletic director at Immanuel Christian, Paul Gale. Paul, we were talking about your view on kind of the philosophy of sports and education, the elementary level being about participation, learning the rules, having fun, just being a part of it. And then you said middle school, kind of the goal is retention, because at 13, you said 70% of student athletes quit. Mm-hmm. You were a Major League Baseball scout. Your job, I think, was to observe athletes. What's it like for you observing middle school athletes?
Well, the ones a lot of times that would be most interesting to a scout are not less necessarily the ones that are getting the most playing time or the most attention, because. For example, there's some kids in baseball, I'll use the example, that they can't hit very well, but they're very fast. Well, that speed trumps all the other skills. You can teach someone to hit, you can't teach them to run fast. So, having a lot of times those skills don't get appreciated simply because, or the talent doesn't get appreciated because the skills aren't in place yet. Sports that take skills like that take time to build, can make it so that, but you can tell which kids run smoothly and which kids have a chance. But a lot of times at 10 to 12 years old, the best players are the most physical at that time. But if you've ever observed a junior high group of kids, you got kids that look like they're 21 and kids that look like they're 6 in that same 2 to 3 year span, right?
Right.
So the 21-year-old looking kid is dominating, and everybody
Right.
thinks he's the great athlete. And the 6-year-old looking kid, go get the water or whatever.
Right.
But it turns around fast. In 2 or 3 years, that kid can shoot right by, and to the point that you really can't tell if you have a large group of kids who the best kids are going to be just because they're good at 12 or 13 years old, because sometimes they have a size advantage or an age advantage. Most NHL players for a long time were born in January.
Yeah.
And the reason is they were a year up on everybody. And so they made the travel ball teams, they made the all-star teams, and they got
Had
the
the
extra
best
attention,
coaches,
everything. So they had all the huge advantages. And so, that's the type of thing that happens when we organize sports sometimes, is the unintended consequences of shoving people to the side simply because they're not physically ready yet. And I think middle school is when kids are the most different physically, 10 to 13 to 14.
Right. So there might be some middle schoolers being driven home by their parents right now, and they're being forced to listen to us, and maybe they're just feeling a little bit down and questioning whether they should play next year, what would you say to them?
Keep playing.
Yeah.
Just keep playing. As far as our school, we're going to do everything we can to provide opportunities for those kids. That there's a, we have space limitations, but we'll do what we can to rent out other space, get other coaches, do what we can to keep kids playing. Numbers are very important in success in high school sports, and we need to keep numbers up and keep people playing. So just keep playing. You gotta bet on yourself a little bit.
Right. Okay. Love that, and I love this idea that you're saying, as someone who is scout on the highest level, you're not just watching the kids on the court. How much, even in the professional side of things, how much did character come into play when you're scouting someone?
Well, the character to become a high-level professional athlete sometimes takes makeup and characteristics that aren't good for good character and good person. In other words, what makes them successful as a high-level professional athlete doesn't make them a great person all the time. So I'm not saying that there aren't great people that's not what I'm saying at all. Many of them are great people. But there's a certain amount of drive and single-mindedness and selfishness in some way that needs to take place for someone to perform at such high levels. Also, if you always perform at high levels, you're going to develop a kind of an entitlement attitude and a different attitude about life. And so you still may be very gifted, but you might be very immature in your entitlement and in your idea about life. But that doesn't take away from your gifts to be able to perform at high levels. So character is important in life, but it doesn't necessarily make you a great professional athlete.
Right. Okay. All right. And then Rachel, as you're watching kids both on and off the court, where do you kind of draw that distinction between character and sports? You're also an avid six-man tackle football fan.
Yes, I am. 6-man, 11-man, 8-man, any kind. I think it is a little bit different for us in the Christian education realm because, I'm not drafting for the NFL, right? I'm looking from that educational perspective, and especially as a Christian school, for us, spiritual formation is number one. And so it is very important to us that even our student athletes, that our coaches, that our staff, that they've really embraced that vision for spiritual formation, not just in the classroom, not just in chapels, but also in our athletic program. And so I would say in our context, that character piece is paramount. And I know, Paul and I have talked about this, and with Aaron, our assistant AD, and with some of our coaches. And, I'm not, and actually even, Paul, you mentioned this at one point about if we get to the win the wrong way, that we haven't really won. And I think that's true, that, as much as I love a W, if we got it by cheating, or we got it by favoring the kids who have no character but are, great quarterbacks, I don't see that as a win for us. Our mission is partnering with parents in Christ-centered education to do three things, and that's to anchor them in God's Word, to nurture a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and then, of course, to equip them in their skills and talents to further the kingdom of God. So as a Christian school, obviously our metric is going to be a little bit different. And, I'm excited whenever we can bring a coach on board who really puts character first. And I would say, and these are things we've talked about it together with our athletic program, when you have kids who are growing in character, my opinion is that they're going to put in the work, they're going to put in the time, there's going to be that chemistry on the team. They're going to be glorifying God, and God blesses that. And so I think you do see more success when you make the spiritual formation and the character development a priority. So for me, I I love it when we win, and I every time they bring home one of those state championships, we all get super excited. But at the end of the day, I want whatever they do when they leave us, I want it to bring glory to God, and I want them to leave us with the character and the relationship with the Lord to be successful in every area of life, not just athletics. And so, it's heartbreaking to me. We watch a lot of professional sports at home, and that you see these athletes that have more talent in their little finger than most people will ever have in their whole body, and they blow it in the first few years because they don't have the character to handle the fame and handle the money, and so I think we have to do both.
Yeah. Love it. Again, today we're with Paul Gale. He's the new athletic director at Immanuel Christian School, and my wife, Mrs. Rachel Frecka, who's the head of school there, talking about Christian education, talking about athletics programs, young people, all of that. But right now we have Charlie One on the phone. Charlie One. Oh, wow. Charlie One, what are you seeing out on the roads this afternoon?
Well, there's probably a lot of honking going on with these crashes that I've got going on here, so that's not surprising. Let's go to the northeast area where we have Sean Haggerty and Whitey Ford on a crash. PD, they're not even there yet. Also, Dyer and Leo, this one has PD there. Fire department, their injury crash, Dyer and Leo. And then we have on the west side, Desert North and Thorn on a crash. It's on the on-ramp right there, but it's causing some congestion here, Desert North and Thorn. Let's go to the east side, Loma Linda and Barranca, injury crash, PD Fire Department there. Pelicano and Armor on a crash that's working right now. So quite a few trouble spots, PD are busy. Andy, back to you.
Thank you, Charlie One. This afternoon we have with us my wife, Rachel Frecka. She's over at Immanuel Christian School, and Paul Gale, who's the new head of the athletic department at Immanuel Christian. Immanuel had some state championships this year. And I know any sports team, when they have a state championship, they want to get together for a great meal and a celebration. And there's no better way to celebrate than with the Borderlands Bowl of Breakfast of Champions. Where would you recommend that they find that bowl?
Well, they're, especially when you're working off with a team and everything, so it's kind of rare. I don't know if you're really hard working workout schedule and you got a tight regimen of eating, but to have a steaks and everything kind of bogs you down, kind of weighs you down. But the menudo, that's like having a soup, a real delicious soup. It's got all the nutrients in there. Yes. I'm not going to say it's healthy. I think it's healthy. That's just my opinion, but very tasty. And that's menudo. It's a breakfast of champions in the borderland here. And you can't find it everywhere. So take advantage. If you're here in El Paso for any kind of a sports event or anything, take advantage of it. So you can pick it up at Eastside Choice Meats, Loveland, and Traywood. And the good thing is that it's in containers. It's homemade. In containers. Take it home, put it in the fridge, eat it in the morning, whenever you want. Eastside Choice Meats, Loveland, and Traywood. Andy.
Thank you, Charlie One. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
And we're back with Rachel and Paul. Rachel's head of school at Immanuel. Paul's the athletic director. We've been talking about what it takes for an athletic program at a Christian private school. Paul, you're new to El Paso, but you and I had this conversation last week. It's interesting. A school like Immanuel, I'm just going to say this as a parent of an Immanuel athlete. Some of our opponents are way above us athletically, and some are on the journey. Put it that way. How do you balance that?
Well, schedule-wise, for high school kids, schools can go up and down in kind of a roller coaster ride. So, you can knock them off pretty good one year, and then another year they're doing it to you. So, you have to try to get a relationship with the schools, establish a schedule. You're going to have good years and bad years, and schools are going to go through lower enrollment, higher enrollment. The biggest thing in El Paso is how far you got to drive to play a game. That's really the issue. Yeah, I mean, if it's close, I don't care if we can get our head knocked in. Let's not drive 3.5 hours, to play the game.
Right. But, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's an interesting world, and Rachel, I got to put you on the spot.
Okay.
How do you deal with playing against schools where there's a big disparity in the athleticism?
Well, I think when we're playing above us, I mean, we do play some pretty big public schools, Eastlake and Franklin, and obviously they're recruiting from a much larger pool of athletes, and so. Some of those games you go into and you think, okay, probably we're not going to win this one. But I think anytime you can play above the skill level of your team, you're pushing them and you're giving them an opportunity to really grow. And I think if they can go into it with that mindset that this is a growth opportunity for us, I think it can be very positive. And then I think even on the flip side, if you're playing a team that is definitely a lower skill level, to me, that's another opportunity for character development. Are you going to be good sportsmen? Are you going to have the humility to play hard and to play well, but to do it in a way that honors the Lord and not gloating and throwing your weight around and all of that, but really doing it with class and with good sportsmanship. And so, I think if we just play people that are, teams that are on the same level with us all the time, you kind of miss out on some of those growth opportunities.
Right. It's an interesting world. It's very emotionally charged. Of course, I think sometimes more for the parents than for the students.
Absolutely.
But you're doing a good job on the radio, Rachel.
Oh, thank you.
Because our son Benny is watching on the 915 Talk channel on YouTube, and he says, "Tell Mom I love her and that she's doing a great job on the radio."
Thank you, Betty. I love you too.
Oh man. Yeah. So. It is interesting balancing all of these things. So much to talk through. But you said, Paul, for high school, it's the process and getting the process right for student athletes. Speak into that in a little bit more detail.
Well, the process is demanding. It means sacrifice. It means giving up other things. It means working hard. It means getting uncomfortable at times, not staying in your comfort zone, and then it means consistency and even when you face failure, that you get up and continue the process. Failure is probably the greatest teacher that we have, and one of the most valuable things of athletics is that you fail a lot. It's kind of comes with the territory. So in the process, regardless of the outcome, you continue to work hard. You continue to do the training, you continue to do all that it takes, and in hopes that and working towards at some point that you'll break through and it'll all come together for you or your team. And it was funny because when I got the job at Immanuel Christian, I'm an assistant coach at Nelson University American Indian College. It's a little NCCAA school, meaning small Christian college in Central Phoenix. And she asked, when can you start? And I looked at our schedule and realized that we were going to be done the last third week in April, and our record was 3-15. And I kind of figured, okay, that will be a good time. I can get over there as soon as the season's over. Well, lo and behold, we continued the process. Our head coach, Josh Milner, really a strong man. He's the head of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes over in the area, a strong believer. He kept everyone on the process. And before we knew it, we were actually having a winning season, and we qualified for the NCCAA World Series in Kansas City next week. So
super cool.
So, and there's lots of examples of, if you watched the Kentucky Derby last week, where that horse came from.
Right, I did see that.
There's just lots of things that are examples of teams that. I think the year in 2005 when we went to the World Series, we started the season 15-30, and they put a gravestone on the front of the Houston newspaper and the sports page showing that our season was over. Mm-hmm. But those guys involved continued the process, and if you continue the process, quite often you can learn to turn things around, and it's a big deal.
Right, super cool. I got a message. Your wife sounds very smart, very knowledgeable about sports. Would you like to respond to that, Rachel?
I am not athletic. Let me put it that way. I have never successfully played a sport.
Oh, come on! You went to Wheaton and you took bowling.
Yes,
as a class.
I got to be in it. Apparently, you had to know a lot of physics to pass that class. But I'm a big fan. I've always enjoyed watching athletics, and then especially having a diehard sports fan in the family, and now a son who's very athletic and love sports. It's kind of a family thing. So, but football's that's my jam. I'll watch
Right.
basketball, but I get a little crazy when it's football season.
Right. Paul, we've had a friend of mine on this program before. His name is Mark Scott. He's with Border Therapy Services. They're KELP Impact Partners. Good people over there. They've helped me out with back issues. And anyway, he specializes, I might get this wrong a little bit, but you'll get the idea. He specializes in trauma to the elbow from baseball, especially among young athletes. And what I understand from that is a lot of parents are really, really pushing their kids, maybe too much, kind of pushing them to be major league players, professional players, when at an age where we don't really know. Speak into that.
Well, years ago, the problem is that you overthrew kids. If they were good pitchers at 10, 11, and 12, they just kept pitching, and ultimately they damaged their arm. That isn't really the case now. The case now is the problem is that they're chasing velocity. So they're doing the things that they can do to throw harder. And the things that they do to throw harder actually are more wear and tear on their elbow. Their philosophy is, well, I'll just get the Tommy John surgery and then it will be all right and I'll come back from that. But I know kids that have had 2 or 3 Tommy John surgeries. But the chase for velocity, now that scouting goes so much by measurables, what they can measure a pitcher to do, it only incentivizes them throwing harder. They don't even, when I first got into scouting, the average fastball was 89 to 91 miles an hour, and now it's in the mid-90s. So the push for that and different places that have done that, emphasis on that, has caused it so that you just see elbows going out right and left. And a lot of people's attitudes is, well, that's the price of, trying to become a major leaguer or trying to run business. I think it's unfortunate that that's the case. There was a few people like Nolan Ryan back in the day that he could throw 200 pitches in the game, and he was the hardest thrower at the time. They used different measurements than radar guns and stuff back then, but he was easily throwing what the guys do today. He stayed pretty healthy throughout his career. And so there's ways of doing it, training, but I think if you're chasing the velocity, you're putting the stress on your elbow that's going to ultimately, it's going to do the damage and hurt the elbow. There's probably not going to turn around and go any different now, but it's an unfortunate result of what the game's become with 3 outcomes to where they're pushing to not pitch to contact, to strike everybody out, and so they want to have high velocity in order to do that.
Okay. And then bigger picture, what would you say to parents if you are watching and it appears they're putting too much pressure on the kids?
Well, it's the times. I mean, when I was a kid, you started playing ball in a sandlot because parents weren't worried that something bad would happen to you when you were away for 5 hours at a sandlot.
Right.
So you'd go to wherever that was and you'd play baseball, and there wasn't a parent or an adult within a mile of the place. And you figured it out, and when it became unsafe for that situation, parents became worried about that. They started to organize sports more and more, baseball being an example. And actually in the organization of it, I think they actually hurt the sport. They made it so that now parents had to be there. They were coaching all the time. The kids didn't know how to react themselves. You taught yourself on the playground what to do and how to do it. They didn't. They had to have instruction. If you've ever been to a T-ball game, you hear 30 people yelling "run, run," or second base, second base, all at the same time, while the kid is frozen in time,
right,
trying to discern who's yelling at him.
Right.
But so then after that, after they organized it, then practically every sport, an adult figured out how he could make a living by having club teams and AAUs and all these things that people have to buy in for the whole year in order so the people running that, they need a check every month. So they found ways to make their sport year round. And when I first started scouting, we'd go to American Legion games in the summer, college games, high school games. but it wasn't long till all I went to was showcases and club team championships and all the things that took away from those amateur athletes. Well, that changed it, and so now the emphasis became, I need to get my kids a college scholarship. I need to get them drafted, and parents felt responsible for that. I don't think my dad went to a ball game until I was in high school. I don't think he ever, and it wasn't unusual you weren't like turned into the child department if you didn't go to your kid's game. They could actually stay home and do something else. But now you're considered a bad parent if you're not there with snacks, handing them out and doing everything. And the change of that partly came about because the money got big, and parents wanted the opportunity for their kids to make that money. I just laughed at people that would say, well, all I want for Johnny is to get a Division III scholarship, and so he's going to play on this travel team. Well, number one, Division III doesn't give out scholarships. And number two, if you took the money that it cost to put Johnny on that travel team and put it in the bank, you could pay for that Division III school by the time he was out of school. You know, so really what they're saying is they say that, but really what they mean, I want him to be seen as an athlete, as a have a chance to make that. That's really what their motivation is, when they do that. But so the change of that, the showcase circuit, and it's not going back. I mean, I'm an old man shouting at the clouds. I admit that. But, the travel ball, the AAU, the showcase, all that kind of stuff has just put an immense amount of pressure. And now I think you see more and more instances where people respond poorly in high school age competition.
Right. I feel like we need to talk about that responding poorly. But you were talking about D3. And it's almost like you're cueing the next question that we also got on YouTube. 915 Talk is the YouTube channel. Ask Mr. Gale if I have a chance to make a D3 football team. That's one of our...
I wonder who that is.
Yeah, one of our Immanuel Christian School graduates this year. What would you say?
I would say yes. My experience with Division III and sending kids there when I was coaching high school and stuff like that is that they need to have numbers, and they want to give kids chances, and it's usually a good place to go. Division III is pretty cool because usually those schools are well funded, and it's a pretty positive experience. I would just warn anyone that it's not as glamorous as it seems. And there's a lot of hard work, and there's a lot of the payback isn't always that great. So, be careful what you wish for.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Love it. A lot of hard work. But I look at it and I'm like, well, that's a way to take it to the next level. And really it's kind of back to the words you used earlier, participation, getting a chance to go to the next level. So
yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat if whoever asked that question, go for it.
Yeah.
And, you can decide if you're 2 years in and you don't like it, then you're getting your education, but I would say absolutely give it a try.
Right. Okay. You use the term responding poorly. I think that's parents who have these high expectations. How do you manage that as an athletic director?
Well, you got to be sure that your coaches are clear with the expectations with their kids and with their parents. I got to be careful being a little hypocritical here.
Okay.
Because I grew up in an age where, I'll just tell you a quick story. One time I'm sitting there, and I grew up in Moscow, Idaho. At the college gym was Memorial Gym. And I'm sitting there reading a TV Guide. That's a magazine you guys are maybe too young to know about. But it had an article there about a official in in basketball. And he was kind of giving stories that had gone by. And I all of a sudden came across, and it said in the article, and my dad was sitting in the room, that he was mugged after a game in Moscow, Idaho. I go, Dad, this official said that he was mugged in a game after a game in Moscow, Idaho at Memorial Gym. And my dad said, we just pushed him around a little. So, there's some history there.
Right. I don't think we're supposed to do that anymore. That's hilarious. But yeah, you're saying make sure that the coaches give the proper expectations. It sounds like both to the team and the parents.
Yeah,
Right.
you got that. And parents are usually upset because expectations of what they thought were going to happen didn't happen, and they weren't communicated. As far as officials and stuff like that, I officiated high school basketball for a long time, and I tell you, you're just trying to have a good game out there. You're not trying to favor anybody.
Right.
It's just you should officiate one game. If everyone could officiate one game, it would totally change their perspective on what's going on the floor.
Right. What would some of those, not all of them and not even the most important ones, but what would some of the expectations be that you would want parents and athletes to know?
Well, I think sometimes what's communicated poorly is that from perspective of a coach is that he has kids put in all this time and do all this stuff, and then the kid doesn't make the team. And so, the expectations need to be made clear that, at least so that they know that there's a risk that they're not going to be making the team. And then the coach wonders why people are mad at him. Well, they just devoted 2 summers to playing on this team and doing all this work, and it didn't end up that they even made the team. Some of it, playing time is always the biggest issue, and I think you need to show and communicate expectations on playing time, what your plan is on that. But really, it's up to the athlete to get himself on the field or on the floor. It's if you work hard and get better and get valuable for that team, you're going to find more and more time to play. So usually when parents complain to me about that, I just say find a way to get on the field.
Right.
Just work harder, practice.
Yeah.
Work. Find a way to get on the field. The coach wants to win. He's not putting you there because he's hoping to lose the game.
Yeah.
Find a way to get on the field.
Right. Okay. What does kind of big picture? What does a healthy, successful, private Christian school athletic program look like?
First of all, there's no question that kids are being mentored and growing spiritually in their walk with Christ. The kids know how to behave. Now, let's take it easy on 16-year-olds who, throw a ball out of bounds and are frustrated. Their girlfriend just saw it, and everybody's yelling, and they react poorly.
Right.
That's part of the failure process.
Sure.
And the learning through the failure process.
Yeah.
But you should carry the fact that that Christ is in your life, and that you have a message for people that maybe don't know Him, that you want to compete with them, but you also care about them, and you want to be a good sport, and you want to play. Sports is fun, competition is fun, but there's also the reality. The more important thing is that, I care about you. Good job, be a good sport. I think also that parents in the gym or on a field are very encouraging for their kids, but they're not discouraging for the other team. They don't need to, yell or do things. They can encourage, but not be discouraging to the other team or talk trash or things like that. So I think there's an expectation that you're a reflection of Christ, that you care about people, that you want them to do well, that you honor people. When that's something, an opponent does something good, you congratulate them on it, and you tip your hat to them, and you know, all those sorts of things. So I think if you walk into a athletic event and those types of things are taking place, you'll realize that it's, and Christian schools are probably criticized more. You're on a pedestal a little bit. Oh, look he threw the ball down hard because he was mad at the call, and he's supposed to be a Christian. Well, you have that responsibility because you chose it. So,
Love it, Rachel. And anything you would add to what you see as being a successful athletic program?
I think something that Paul touched on is participation. Kids being excited, kids playing through high school. Obviously, as private schools, we worry a lot about retention. But I think if you're creating a program that creates value for the students and where they really feel like they belong and that they have relationship and they're being poured into, those kids are going to want to stay. And so, to me, a healthy program is a program where you're not losing kids every year, but they have coaches and other leaders that are pouring into them and investing in them in every way. And another thing too, I mean, just practically, even we've had a history at Immanuel of kids going off to play in college, whether it be D3, even some D2. Right now, we have an athlete who's one of the top track and field athletes in the nation, playing at running for a D1 school. So to me, that's another metric, is just that we're giving these kids an opportunity to grow so that they can go out into the world and be successful, even in athletics.
Okay, so today we've been with Paul Gale. He's the new athletic director at Immanuel Christian, talking about really just a philosophy of athletics and education with my wife, Rachel Frecka. She's also the head of school at Immanuel. So, Paul, we have one question we ask first-time guests, and it's a culinary question. So I have to be sure to ask you this because it's your first time on the program. It's a question you're asked when you go out to eat, and the question is this: red or green?
Green.
That is correct. All right, so you did well, Paul. Again, welcome to El Paso. And Rachel, if folks out there are kind of thinking about where they want to send their kids this fall to school, what would you say to them about Immanuel?
I would say you're welcome. We're always looking for great families that will come and join our community, and we want to be a service to the city of El Paso and to the families here. So just reach out to us. You can go onto our website. It's www.immanuelwarriors.org, and that's Immanuel with an IMMANUEL warriors.org. If we're not the perfect fit, there are some amazing Christian schools here in El Paso. If you decide Immanuel's not the place for you, we'd love to have a conversation with you and introduce you to some of our partners in the city who are also in the work of Christian education. Our ultimate goal, whether a student is at our school or another private school or even in public school, is that the children of El Paso are growing and being successful and exactly where the Lord would have them.
Love it. Paula and Rachel, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Yeah, as we always say, let's learn to love our city, love our neighbors, and I'll add today, let's get excited about youth sports and give God all the glory. This has been 915 Talk.